The obsidian war chamber of the Kethran imperial devastator Endless Conquest thrummed with barely contained fury as Supreme Overlord Maltheus Vectar studied the holographic nightmare floating before his 8 primary optical sensors. 23,000 warships, representing the combined military might of the tripartite Dominion Alliance, the largest invasion fleet ever assembled in the galaxy's recorded history, had been reduced to quantum debris and twisted metal above a primitive blue-green world that, according to 4 centuries of meticulous surveillance, shouldn't have possessed weapons capable of threatening a single scout vessel, let alone annihilating the pride of 3-star empires. The massive crystalline displays surrounding the war chamber showed real-time feeds from the Sol system's outer reaches, where Kethran sensor drones collected the electromagnetic signatures of what had once been the most sophisticated military operation in galactic history. Debris fields stretched across millions of cubic kilometers of space, the atomized remains of vessels that had conquered 47 star systems using identical tactical methodologies. Ship classifications that had struck terror into civilizations across 17 sectors, Devastator-class dreadnoughts, Annihilator-heavy cruisers, Obliterator battle platforms now existed only as expanding clouds of superheated plasma. "Explain this catastrophe!" Vectar's voice echoed through the crystalline amphitheater where the surviving command staff of Operation Final Harvest had been summoned to account for the impossible. The few hundred officers who remained alive represented less than 2% of the original invasion force leadership, their bioluminescent skin patterns flickering with combinations of shame, confusion, and existential terror that would have been amusing under any other circumstances. Fleet Admiral Nexus Dravel stepped forward on her 6 manipulator appendages, her scaled features bearing the haunted expression of someone who had witnessed fundamental principles of physics and military strategy revealed as mere suggestions. Behind her towered science coordinator Xylex Morvain, her crystalline exoskeleton refracting the chamber's emergency lighting into prismatic patterns that danced across walls designed to intimidate conquered species into submission. "Supreme Overlord," Admiral Dravel began, her voice carrying undertones that her species typically reserved for discussions of religious impossibilities. "Preliminary analysis indicates that our intelligence regarding the human species was not merely incomplete. It appears to have been systematically falsified from the initial moment of contact 4 centuries ago." The silence that followed was more dangerous than the nuclear fires that had consumed Kethran battle fleets. Vectar's primary combat claws extended involuntarily from their biomechanical sheaths, scraping against the molecular-bonded armor of his command throne with sounds that resonated through the chamber's acoustic enhancement systems. 4 centuries of surveillance operations, the most comprehensive intelligence-gathering campaign ever undertaken by the Galactic Dominion Council. Detailed behavioral analyses of human societies, technological assessments verified through multiple independent methodologies, military capability evaluations confirmed by direct observation, and cultural penetration studies that had consumed the resources of 12 star systems and involved the coordination of over 60,000 specialized operatives. "Impossible," whispered Intelligence Director Thylex Corvin, his biomechanical implants flickering as they processed data streams that challenged every foundational assumption of galactic strategic doctrine. "Our deep infiltration units maintained continuous observation protocols for 300 standard years. We documented every technological advancement, catalogued every social evolution, verified every military development through multiple redundant confirmation systems. The humans possessed chemical-based propulsion rockets that could barely achieve orbital velocity, primitive nuclear weapons with yields that wouldn't threaten a single Dominion frigate, and electromagnetic communication systems so crude they leaked radiation across vast frequency spectrums." Science Coordinator Morvain, activated her personal interface, flooding the chamber with decades of carefully catalogued human activity displayed in three-dimensional holographic complexity. Cities growing in predictable urban development patterns, technologies advancing along mathematical curves that matched theoretical models for emerging spacefaring civilizations, military forces organized according to standard evolutionary frameworks that the Dominion had observed in 47 previous conquest scenarios. Our xenosociological analysis teams spent 8 decades studying human behavioral patterns, she reported, her voice carrying the precision of scientific methodology applied to incomprehensible circumstances. Political fragmentation along tribal and ideological boundaries, resource competition driving continuous small-scale conflicts, technological development limited by inefficient energy distribution systems and primitive materials science. Every indicator suggested a species operating at approximately 41% of our own technological baseline, with military capabilities that pose no meaningful threat to even our oldest vessel classifications. Vector accessed his personal command interface, activating the comprehensive intelligence archives that had served as the foundational blueprint for Operation Final Harvest. The holographic displays expanded to fill the chamber's entire volume, with decades of meticulously organized human observation data, electromagnetic emissions catalogued down to individual frequency signatures, industrial output tracked through atmospheric composition analysis, military exercises recorded by cloaked surveillance drones, transportation networks mapped through gravitational disturbance sensors. Display the Beijing Orbital Monitoring Station reports from the past 75 years, he commanded, his voice carrying the deadly calm that his subordinates had learned to recognize as more dangerous than explosive rage. The station in question represented one of 17 permanent surveillance installations the Dominion had established in the outer reaches of the Sol system, disguised as natural asteroids and equipped with sensor arrays capable of detecting quantum-level fluctuations throughout human space. The holographic display shifted to show comprehensive electromagnetic analysis from Earth's largest continental population center. Every radio transmission, every satellite communication, every digital data transfer had been intercepted, decoded, and analyzed by quantum processing systems that could break most galactic encryption protocols within nanoseconds. Communications traffic patterns, energy consumption metrics, industrial production indicators, transportation network efficiency ratings, military infrastructure development timelines, Admiral Dravel reported, manipulating three-dimensional data structures with practiced efficiency. Every measurable parameter indicated a civilization struggling with the transition from planetary resource exploitation to sustainable interstellar expansion. Their most advanced energy production facilities relied on controlled nuclear fusion reactions that barely achieved net positive output. Their fastest spacecraft required chemical propulsion systems with specific impulse ratings that limited effective range to their immediate planetary system. But as Vector examined the surveillance data with the clarity of hindsight and the knowledge of catastrophic failure, subtle patterns began emerging from what had previously appeared as perfectly normal developmental indicators. Communication protocols that demonstrated marginal efficiency improvements beyond what human technology should have supported. Energy distribution networks that occasionally exhibited optimization algorithms more sophisticated than their documented capabilities suggested. Manufacturing processes that sometimes produced materials with molecular structures slightly more advanced than their published scientific literature indicated was possible. These anomalies, Vector muttered, his claws manipulating holographic controls to highlight hundreds of minor discrepancies scattered across decades of surveillance data. Our analytical systems classified them as measurement uncertainties, equipment calibration errors, or statistically inevitable exceptional circumstances. The intelligence director Corvin activated his own interface systems, pulling up the comprehensive comparative analysis databases that had guided strategic planning for the invasion. Supreme Overlord, we cross-referenced human development patterns with 63 other species that we have successfully incorporated into Dominion governance structures. The correlations were statistically remarkable, nearly identical technological progression curves matching social evolution patterns, parallel resource utilization strategies, even similar cultural development trajectories. Statistically remarkable, Vector repeated, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than a declaration of war. The implications began cascading through his consciousness like quantum dominoes, falling in precise mathematical sequence. If human civilization had developed along pathways that matched theoretical models with statistical near impossibility, if their technological progress had followed predicted trajectories with mathematical precision that defied natural evolutionary chaos, then every fundamental assumption underlying the intelligence operation might have been compromised from its very inception. Too remarkable, he realized aloud, the words feeling alien and dangerous in his throat. Xylex, initiate comprehensive statistical analysis of human development patterns against theoretical frameworks for emerging spacefaring civilizations. I want probability calculations for natural occurrence of such precise correlations. The analysis required several minutes of quantum processing, sophisticated mathematical algorithms churning through vast databases of comparative civilization development studies. Science Coordinator Morvain's crystalline exoskeleton flickered with patterns of growing unease as preliminary results began appearing in the holographic displays. Supreme Overlord, she reported, her voice hollow with implications that transcended military defeat and approached existential impossibility. Statistical analysis indicates that human development patterns demonstrate correlation coefficients of 0. In 294, with our theoretical models across 17 major categories of civilization advancement, the probability of such precise matching occurring through natural evolutionary processes is approximately 1 in 417 billion. The mathematical impossibility settled over the war chamber like a gravitational field, warping their understanding of reality itself. No species in galactic recorded history had ever developed along pathways that matched theoretical projections with such supernatural precision. Natural evolution was chaotic, unpredictable, characterized by random technological breakthroughs, unexpected scientific discoveries, resource crises that triggered innovative solutions, and social upheavals that redirected entire civilizations onto previously unimaginable developmental trajectories. They were performing for us, Vector said slowly, each word carrying the weight of civilizational revelation. 4 centuries of the most sophisticated surveillance operation ever undertaken by galactic intelligence services, and we were observing a carefully orchestrated theatrical performance designed to meet our analytical expectations with mathematical precision. Admiral Dravel manipulated holographic controls to display tactical analysis from the invasion's opening phases. Supreme Overlord, if their deception extended to fundamental technological capabilities, then our entire assault strategy was constructed upon intelligence that was not merely incomplete, but deliberately and systematically falsified from the foundational level. Detail, the tactical displays, showed the initial stages of Operation Final Harvest in devastating detail. Massive Kethran fleet formations descending through Earth's outer system with the confidence of predators approaching helpless prey, their advanced energy shielding systems shimmering with colors that had no names in most galactic languages. The humans had responded exactly as every predictive model had indicated they would. Primitive spacecraft scrambling desperately from orbital installations, kinetic projectile weapons firing uselessly at energy barriers that could absorb the output of small stars, planetary communication networks collapsing under the electromagnetic interference of sophisticated alien electronic warfare systems, for exactly 19 minutes and 47 seconds. Display the complete sensor readings from the moment their defensive systems achieved full operational status, Vector commanded, his voice tight with anticipation of revelations that would challenge everything he understood about warfare, technology, and the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. The holographic displays shifted to show Earth's electromagnetic signature during the transition that had transformed the planet from apparent helplessness to devastating military effectiveness. In the span of less than 20 minutes, energy signatures throughout the Sol system had metamorphosed from primitive chemical and nuclear sources to sophisticated quantum field manipulations that represented technology more advanced than anything in Dominion databases. These power generation signatures, Science Coordinator Morvain whispered, her exoskeleton flickering with patterns that indicated scientific amazement approaching religious awe. They match theoretical specifications for zero-point energy extraction systems coupled with quantum vacuum fluctuation amplifiers, technologies that our most advanced research installations have been attempting to achieve for 12 centuries without success. Dear technologies, Intelligence Director Corvin added with growing horror, that according to our surveillance data, they developed and deployed while maintaining the appearance of struggling with primitive nuclear fusion reactors. Vector accessed communication intercepts from the invasion's final hours, data streams that had been automatically recorded by Dominion sensors before the human counterattack had eliminated most of the surveillance network. Instead of the panicked, uncoordinated transmissions expected from a primitive species under overwhelming attack, the electromagnetic spectrum had suddenly filled with communication patterns of impossible sophistication, quantum-encrypted data streams, consciousness direct interface protocols, and coordination networks that operated on principles Dominion science had barely begun to theoretically explore. They converted our electronic warfare systems into amplification networks for their own communication grid, Admiral Dravel reported, her voice carrying undertones of professional admiration mixed with existential terror. We didn't merely fail to disrupt their defensive coordination. Our jamming systems improved their tactical efficiency by providing additional bandwidth for data streams we cannot even decode. The scope of the intelligence failure extended far beyond military defeat into realms of strategic impossibility. Every technological assessment, every capability evaluation, every tactical prediction, every strategic framework had been based on information that was not just inaccurate, but had been deliberately crafted to guide Dominion planning toward predetermined conclusions. Initiate complete review of all infiltration operative reports from the past 15 years, Vector ordered, his voice carrying the weight of commands that might reshape their understanding of galactic civilization itself. I want detailed analysis of every observation, every cultural assessment, every technological evaluation provided by our embedded intelligence assets. The data streams that flooded the holographic displays represented one of the most comprehensive intelligence operations in galactic history. Thousands of Kethran agents using advanced biomimetic technology and consciousness transfer protocols to assume convincing human appearances had spent years embedded within human society at every level, from individual families to governmental leadership structures. Their reports had painted a remarkably consistent picture across decades of observation. a fragmented species divided by tribal conflicts based on superficial physical differences and primitive ideological disagreements, limited by technological capabilities that represented only marginal advancement beyond their planet-bound ancestors, struggling with resource management problems and environmental degradation that suggested imminent civilizational collapse or stagnation. But examining these reports with the clarity provided by catastrophic failure, Vector began identifying patterns that had been systematically dismissed as irrelevant details or statistical noise. Human research facilities that seemed marginally more advanced than their published capabilities suggested. Military training exercises that demonstrated tactical sophistication beyond what their documented equipment should have allowed. Industrial production that occasionally exceeded official capacity ratings by amounts that fell within acceptable margins of measurement error. Transportation systems that sometimes moved personnel and materials with timing precision that suggested coordination algorithms more sophisticated than their apparent technology could support. These discrepancies, he said, manipulating holographic controls to highlight thousands of minor anomalies scattered across decades of intelligence reports, our analytical protocols classified them as exceptional circumstances, measurement uncertainties, or the natural variation expected in any complex system under observation. Nay, but if we aggregate all reported anomalies across all embedded operatives throughout all observation periods, Science Coordinator Morvain noted, while performing real-time statistical calculations, they form a statistically significant pattern of human capabilities being systematically underestimated by margins that appear random individually, but demonstrate clear coordination when viewed collectively. Systematic coordination, Admiral Dravel realized, her voice carrying implications that challenged fundamental assumptions about how civilizations could organize themselves, across an entire species, maintained for centuries, executed with precision, that suggests every individual human was aware of their role in an elaborate deception designed specifically to fool galactic intelligence services. The psychological impossibility of such coordination struck the Dominion officers as forcefully as the technological revelations. The Kethran Empire, despite its sophisticated hierarchical command structures and advanced communication systems, could barely maintain strategic coordination across multiple star systems for periods exceeding several decades. The idea that an apparently fragmented species could execute a deception of such scope and duration was beyond their conceptual framework for understanding civilized behavior. Unless, Vector said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of revelations that would redefine galactic strategic doctrine, we fundamentally misunderstood the nature of human civilization from our very first observation. Unless what we interpreted as political fragmentation and social chaos was itself a carefully maintained facade designed to conceal unity and coordination that operates on principles we have never encountered. Intelligence Director Corvin activated emergency analysis protocols, pulling up historical data that had formed the foundation of Dominion strategic planning for the past 4 centuries. Supreme Overlord, if human civilization has been deliberately concealing its true nature since before we achieved interstellar travel capability, then every assumption we have made about galactic power structures, technological development timelines, and strategic threat assessments may be fundamentally compromised. The implications rippled outward like shockwaves from a supernova. If humanity had been conducting counter-surveillance operations against Dominion intelligence services for centuries, if they had been feeding carefully crafted disinformation through channels the Dominion had believed were secure, if they had been manipulating galactic perceptions of Earth to serve strategic objectives that remained invisible to alien observation, then the scope of their capabilities extended far beyond advanced technology into realms of strategic thinking that redefined what galactic civilization considered possible. "Sir," Admiral Dravel announced, activating new sensor displays that showed the current state of the Sol system, "we are detecting massive installations throughout human space that were not present in our pre-invasion sensor sweeps. Artificial structures of unprecedented scale and sophistication." The holographic display expanded to encompass the entire solar system, revealing a transformed reality that bore no resemblance to the primitive space infrastructure that Dominion surveillance had documented for centuries. Massive orbital installations surrounded not just Earth, but every planet in the system, connected by transportation networks that appeared to operate on quantum displacement principles. Energy conduits linked these installations in patterns that suggested system-wide coordination of resources on a scale that dwarfed anything the Dominion had achieved across their entire multi-system empire. Quantum displacement manufacturing complexes, zero-point energy distribution networks, consciousness transfer relay stations, temporal manipulation research facilities. Science coordinator Morvain read from sensor analysis reports, her voice filled with scientific amazement that transcended species boundaries. "Technologies that represent not merely centuries of advancement beyond our current capabilities, but fundamental understanding of physical principles that our science has classified as purely theoretical." "How long have these installations been operational?" Vector demanded, though the patterns of quantum decay visible in the sensor data already suggested answers that challenged his understanding of temporal causality itself. The analysis required extensive quantum archaeological investigation, sophisticated algorithms designed to trace electromagnetic signatures backward through time by analyzing residual quantum fluctuations embedded in the fabric of space-time itself. When the results appeared, they confirmed suspicions that redefined the scale of human strategic planning. "Supreme Overlord," Morvain reported, her voice hollow with implications that stretched across centuries. "Based on quantum signature decay patterns, electromagnetic resonance archaeology, and temporal displacement analysis, these installations have been continuously operational for approximately 600 standard years." The temporal impossibility settled over the war chamber like a gravitational anomaly. 600 years, longer than the Kethran Empire had existed as a unified galactic power. The humans hadn't just hidden their true capabilities. They had been maintaining this elaborate deception since before the Dominion had developed faster-than-light travel, since before their first contact with any galactic civilization, since before they had even known that other sapient species existed in the galaxy. "They have been preparing for this moment," Intelligence Director Corvin whispered, his voice carrying the weight of strategic revelations that challenged every assumption about cause and effect in galactic politics. "Since before they knew we existed, they were preparing to defend against threats they had never encountered from species they had never contacted." Vector felt the foundations of his understanding shift as the scope of human strategic foresight became apparent. This wasn't just technological superiority or elaborate deception. This was evidence of strategic thinking that operated on timescales and utilized predictive capabilities that transcended anything galactic civilization had considered possible for organic intelligence. "Access the complete historical databases," he commanded, his voice tight with the anticipation of revelations that would reshape Kethran understanding of their place in the galactic order. "I want comprehensive analysis of every recorded interaction between Dominion forces and human-occupied space throughout our entire period of galactic expansion." The historical review that followed revealed patterns of interaction that had seemed perfectly normal when viewed as isolated incidents, but took on sinister significance when analyzed as components of a larger design. Merchant vessels from Earth that had requested transit rights through Dominion space, always carrying cargo manifests that understated their technological sophistication by margins that seemed reasonable at the time. Diplomatic contacts initiated by human representatives who had provided information about their homeworld's capabilities, consistently emphasizing limitations and vulnerabilities while downplaying strengths. Scientific exchange programs that had allowed Dominion researchers to observe human technology, always showcasing developments that were impressive but not threatening to galactic power structures. Every interaction, Vector realized as the patterns became undeniably clear, every piece of intelligence we collected, every technological assessment we performed, every cultural evaluation we conducted, all carefully orchestrated to reinforce our preconceptions about human limitations, while providing them with detailed information about our capabilities, our strategic thinking, and our expansion methodologies. Science coordinator Morvain pulled up comparative analysis charts that showed technological development timelines for both civilizations. If they have possessed advanced quantum technologies for 6 centuries, then every aspect of their observed civilization, their space programs, their energy production systems, their military capabilities, their political structures, everything was deliberately designed to appear primitive while concealing capabilities that surpass our own by several orders of magnitude. But why? Admiral Dravel asked, voicing the question that dominated every thought in the war chamber. What strategic benefit could justify maintaining such an elaborate deception across multiple centuries? What could they possibly hope to achieve by appearing weak while possessing overwhelming technological superiority? The answer came not from speculation or analysis, but from an incoming transmission that activated their communication systems without requesting permission or following any known protocols. The holographic displays throughout the war chamber shifted without command input to show a communication interface that operated on principles beyond Dominion technological understanding, producing visual quality that made their most advanced systems appear primitive by comparison. The human figure who appeared in the display possessed an unremarkable physical appearance that was utterly contradicted by the intelligence burning in her dark eyes and the absolute confidence in her bearing. She wore clothing that appeared simple, but was clearly constructed from materials that bent light in ways that suggested advanced manufacturing processes, and her posture conveyed the quiet authority of someone who had never encountered a problem she couldn't solve. "I am Director Cassandra Navarre of the Terra Strategic Council," she said, her voice carrying quiet authority that seemed to resonate through the war chamber despite the vast distance between Earth and their current position in deep space. "I believe you have significant questions about recent events that require clarification." Vector struggled to find words adequate to express the magnitude of his civilization's miscalculation. "Your technology, your capabilities, 6 centuries of the most sophisticated surveillance operation ever conducted by galactic intelligence services revealed nothing about your true nature or the existence of advanced installations throughout your star system. Because we invested considerable effort in ensuring that your surveillance operations would detect exactly what we wanted them to observe," Navarre replied with disturbing equanimity, her tone suggesting that deceiving galactic civilizations was a routine administrative function. "Every piece of intelligence your operatives gathered, every technological demonstration your surveillance systems recorded, every cultural assessment your analysts compiled, every strategic evaluation your planners conducted, all precisely calibrated to reinforce your species' natural assumptions about technological development patterns and military capability assessments while guiding your decision-making processes toward predetermined outcomes." The casual admission of such vast and sophisticated deception was more shocking than any demonstration of military superiority. "Impossible," Intelligence Director Corvin protested, his biomechanical implants flickering with patterns of intellectual rejection. The coordination required to maintain such elaborate theater across multiple centuries, involving every level of human society, would exceed the organizational capabilities of any known civilization. Your assessment is based on assumptions about organizational structures and coordination methodologies that reflect the limitations of your own species' psychological and technological development. Navarre replied, with what might have been gentle correction. You assumed that a civilization exhibiting apparent political fragmentation could not maintain large-scale strategic coordination. You never considered the possibility that those very political conflicts might serve as camouflage for something much more unified and purposeful operating beneath the surface of observable events. Science Coordinator Morvain leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming tactical caution and diplomatic protocol. The technological signatures we detected during the invasion, zero-point energy systems, quantum displacement drives, consciousness transfer matrices, temporal manipulation devices. How long have these capabilities existed within human civilization? Our first practical zero-point energy extractors achieved operational status approximately 800 years ago, Navarre replied matter-of-factly, as if discussing routine maintenance procedures. Consciousness transfer technology reached full implementation capability 700 years past. Quantum displacement drives have been in continuous operation throughout our star system for over 6 centuries. Temporal manipulation systems achieved practical application status roughly 500 years ago. The timeline was beyond staggering. It redefined the entire history of galactic civilization. Humanity had possessed technologies that the Dominion considered theoretical impossibilities for longer than the Kethran species had existed as a spacefaring civilization. While the Dominion had been struggling to achieve basic, faster-than-light travel and establish their first interstellar colonies, humans had been developing technologies that made such concerns as obsolete as stone tools. Your nuclear weapons programs, Vector said slowly, grasping for some aspect of human civilization that might correspond to observed reality. Your environmental degradation problems, your resource allocation conflicts, your political fragmentation were carefully managed theatrical productions performed for the benefit of observers who never realized they constituted the intended audience, Navarre confirmed, without change in her calm expression. Every human conflict, every technological limitation, every social division, every environmental crisis that your surveillance systems documented was choreographed to present exactly the image we wanted galactic civilization to maintain regarding Earth's capabilities and strategic significance. Admiral Dravoul pulled up casualty reports from the ground operations that had constituted the brief period when Dominion forces had achieved successful planetary landing before being systematically eliminated. But humans died during our surface engagements. Your people fought and died defending population centers and strategic installations. Acceptable operational losses incurred to maintain strategic security until we achieved our primary objectives, Navarre replied without any discernible emotional response. Every human who died defending Earth during your invasion did so with complete understanding that their sacrifice served essential purposes in a larger strategic framework, and with absolute knowledge that their consciousness would be preserved through our transfer matrix systems for eventual restoration in appropriate circumstances. The casual discussion of deliberate casualties to maintain operational deception struck the Dominion officers as evidence of psychological development beyond their understanding. A civilization so committed to long-term strategic planning that they would accept the deaths of their own people to preserve the effectiveness of a deception spanning centuries was beyond anything in their experience of galactic politics. What were your primary strategic objectives? Vectar asked, though he suspected that understanding the answer would require conceptual frameworks his species had not yet developed. To achieve complete understanding of your civilization's capabilities, limitations, decision-making processes, psychological frameworks, and fundamental approaches to expansion, conquest, and resource acquisition, Navarre replied with the precision of someone reciting established policy. We needed comprehensive data regarding how your species conducts military operations, processes strategic intelligence, coordinates multi-system campaigns, and responds to unexpected tactical challenges. We required you to believe you possessed overwhelming superiority so that you would act in accordance with your natural behavioral patterns when you inevitably decided to attempt conquest of our homeworld. The word inevitably carried implications that chilled Vectar beyond anything he had experienced in centuries of military campaigns. You engineered our decision to invade Earth. We created the precise conditions necessary to make invasion appear both strategically attractive and tactically achievable, Navarre corrected with disturbing precision. Every strategic assessment your analysts performed, every risk-benefit calculation your commanders conducted, every tactical evaluation your planners developed, every resource allocation decision your leadership implemented, all based on intelligence we provided through channels you believed were secure and uncompromised. Science coordinator Morvain studied the holographic displays with growing amazement that transcended species boundaries. You manipulated our entire strategic planning apparatus across multiple decades of preparation. We participated in galactic civilization in a manner specifically designed to produce optimal outcomes for humanity's long-term strategic objectives, Navarre replied, her tone suggesting that such comprehensive manipulation was a routine aspect of interstellar diplomacy. What you interpret as deception and manipulation, we consider prudent strategic planning and responsible stewardship of galactic development patterns. The scope of human strategic thinking was beyond anything in Dominion experience or theoretical frameworks. Most galactic civilizations conducted strategic planning in terms of decades, with the most sophisticated species occasionally developing plans that extended across 1 or 2 centuries. Humanity appeared to execute strategies that spanned multiple millennia, while simultaneously managing the development patterns of other civilizations to serve their larger objectives. Your infiltration operatives believed they were conducting covert surveillance operations to gather intelligence about a primitive species, Navarre continued, her voice carrying undertones of what might have been amusement. In reality, they were receiving precisely the information we wanted the Dominion to possess, carefully crafted to guide your strategic planning toward conclusions that served our purposes. Your intelligence networks believed they were observing our natural civilizational development. In fact, they were watching carefully choreographed performances designed to reinforce preconceptions about human capabilities, while providing us with detailed information about your surveillance methodologies, analytical frameworks, and strategic decision-making processes. Intelligence Director Corvin accessed tactical data from the invasion's final phases, when Dominion forces had been systematically eliminated with precision that transcended military excellence and approached strategic omniscience. Our weapon systems proved completely ineffective against your defensive technologies that, according to 6 centuries of surveillance data, should not have existed within your civilization. Technologies we have possessed for longer than your species has conducted interstellar travel, but which we kept carefully concealed behind quantum masking fields and probability distortion generators that your sensors were specifically designed not to detect, Navarre explained with what might have been professional pride. We have been monitoring galactic civilization development through surveillance networks that operate on principles your science has not yet discovered. We possess detailed intelligence regarding every major galactic power, every significant technological advancement, every strategic alliance, every military capability, and every long-term development plan currently being implemented throughout the galaxy. The implications were staggering beyond military defeat and approached existential impossibility. If humanity possessed surveillance capabilities that could monitor galactic civilization without detection, if they had been gathering intelligence about every major species while remaining invisible to counter-surveillance operations, then no strategic information anywhere in the galaxy was secure from human analysis and manipulation. The electronic warfare phase of our invasion, Admiral Dravel noted, reviewing tactical data that had seemed incomprehensible at the time. You didn't merely counter our jamming systems and communication disruption protocols. You converted our own electromagnetic warfare platforms into amplification networks for your defensive coordination systems. We had been monitoring your electronic warfare capabilities for over 2 centuries, analyzing every protocol, studying every technique, understanding every weakness and strength in your technological approach to battlefield communication disruption. Navarre confirmed with matter-of-fact precision. When we decided to reveal our true capabilities, converting your jamming technology into relay networks for our quantum communication grid was simply a matter of activating countermeasures we had developed and prepared decades earlier. Your electromagnetic warfare systems actually enhanced our tactical coordination during the engagement by providing additional bandwidth and processing power for our command and control networks. The science coordinator Morvain manipulated holographic controls to display comprehensive battle analysis data. Your counterattack wasn't improvised or reactive. Every tactical movement, every weapons deployment, every defensive maneuver was precisely calculated and perfectly coordinated across your entire solar system. Every strategic decision, every tactical deployment, every weapons engagement, every defensive response was planned and rehearsed decades in advance based on comprehensive analysis of Dominion military doctrine, tactical preferences, technological capabilities, and strategic decision-making patterns, Navarre replied with the confidence of someone describing routine procedures. We knew exactly when you would initiate your invasion, precisely how you would deploy your forces, specifically which tactical approaches you would utilize, and exactly how to neutralize every aspect of your military capabilities with minimal risk to Earth's civilian populations and infrastructure. The precision transcended military excellence and represented strategic omniscience achieved through centuries of preparation, comprehensive intelligence gathering, and analytical capabilities that operated on principles beyond Dominion understanding. Our fleet communication networks experienced catastrophic failure within the first 30 minutes of engagement, Intelligence Director Corvin observed, reviewing data that had seemed like random equipment malfunction at the time. Complete system collapse across 17,000 vessels simultaneously. We had been monitoring your communication protocols, encryption algorithms, command structures, and tactical coordination methodologies for over 150 years, Navarre explained, with the patience of someone discussing basic concepts with students. Every code system, every frequency allocation, every command hierarchy, every coordination protocol. When we activated our defensive systems, disabling your communications was accomplished through countermeasures we had prepared, tested, and refined for over half a century. Vectar accessed the comprehensive casualty reports from Operation Final Harvest, data that represented the most complete military disaster in galactic recorded history. 23,000 battleships destroyed or disabled, 6 million Dominion personnel killed, captured, or reported missing. The most sophisticated invasion force ever assembled, neutralized by a species that had appeared defenseless just hours before the attack commenced. Your casualties were statistically insignificant. he noted with grudging professional respect that transcended species hostility. Our intelligence assessment suggested Earth possessed no weapon systems capable of threatening even our oldest vessel classifications. Agrees, because those assessments were based on observations of carefully designed decoy installations and deliberately obsolete systems we maintained specifically for the benefit of surveillance operations, Navarre replied with the calm confidence of someone explaining obvious facts. Our actual defensive platforms have been operational throughout the Sol system for over 4 centuries, positioned using quantum displacement technology that renders them effectively invisible to conventional sensors while providing complete coverage of all approach vectors and tactical possibilities. And the revelation that Earth's true defensive capabilities had remained hidden in plain sight for centuries, while Dominion surveillance systems detected only what humans wanted them to observe, challenged every fundamental assumption about intelligence gathering and strategic assessment that formed the foundation of galactic military doctrine. What happens now? Admiral Dravul asked, voicing the question that dominated the thoughts of every surviving Dominion officer while dreading the implications of any possible answer. Navarre's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, revealing something that might have been anticipation or perhaps satisfaction at reaching a critical juncture in whatever larger plan humanity was implementing. Now you return to Dominion space and deliver a comprehensive message to your leadership structures. Earth is not available for conquest under any circumstances. Humanity is not the primitive species your civilization believed us to be. Any further aggressive actions directed against our homeworld will result in consequences that extend throughout Dominion space and beyond. You are threatening the entire Kethran Dominion, Vectar asked, though the question felt rhetorical given the overwhelming evidence of human capabilities they had already witnessed. I am stating a strategic reality based on comprehensive analysis of tactical possibilities, Navarre corrected with matter-of-fact precision. We have been monitoring 47 star systems under Dominion control for over 3 centuries. We possess detailed intelligence regarding the location of every Dominion world, every fleet position, every strategic resource allocation, every technological installation, every military production facility, and every critical infrastructure component. We could have neutralized your entire civilization at any point during the past 2 centuries without significant effort or resource expenditure. The casual mention of such overwhelming strategic capability sent shockwaves through the war chamber that transcended military defeat and approached civilizational existential crisis. If humans possess the technological and strategic capabilities to eliminate the Dominion at will, then every assumption about galactic power structures, military balance, and strategic relationships was fundamentally incorrect. But you allowed us to continue existing, Science Coordinator Morvain realized, her voice hollow with implications that stretched beyond military strategy into realms of galactic stewardship. You permitted us to continue expanding, continue developing, continue believing we represented a significant galactic power, because we needed your civilization to evolve into precisely the threat you ultimately represented, Navarre explained with clarity that made the strategic complexity even more disturbing. A species sufficiently aggressive to attempt conquest of Earth, technologically advanced enough to pose a credible challenge that would justify revealing our defensive capabilities, but ultimately limited enough that we could neutralize you without compromising our strategic security or revealing our complete technological capabilities to other galactic powers who continue to require careful management. The strategic complexity transcended anything in Dominion experience and approached levels of long-term planning that seemed beyond the capabilities of organic intelligence. Humanity had not only orchestrated their own defense, but had carefully managed the developmental trajectory of their attackers across multiple centuries to serve strategic objectives that remained largely invisible to galactic observation. Other galactic powers, Intelligence Director Corvin asked with growing dread. The Veil Syndicate, the Corthan Federation, the Nexari Hegemony, the Crystalline Collective, do they possess accurate intelligence regarding human capabilities? Each major galactic civilization is receiving carefully tailored information about humanity, precisely calibrated to serve our strategic interests regarding their specific developmental needs and expansion patterns, Navarre replied, with the smooth confidence of someone discussing routine administrative procedures. What your species considers galactic politics and interstellar diplomacy, we regard as a complex management system designed to ensure optimal developmental outcomes across multiple civilizations operating within various temporal and strategic frameworks. Vector stared at the human representative, his 8 primary optical sensors struggling to process implications that stretched beyond military defeat into realms of galactic manipulation that redefined the fundamental nature of interstellar civilization itself. You are orchestrating the development of the entire galaxy. We are participating in galactic civilization in a manner designed to ensure optimal outcomes for all sapient species while maintaining strategic security for humanity's long-term developmental objectives. Navarre corrected with precision that suggested vast experience in explaining these concepts to alien intelligences. What you interpret as manipulation and control, we consider responsible stewardship of galactic evolutionary processes and prudent management of interstellar stability. The conversation continued for another 4 hours, each revelation more staggering than any previous disclosure. Humanity had developed technologies that rendered traditional concepts of warfare, resource scarcity, and territorial expansion completely obsolete. They had achieved practical immortality through consciousness transfer systems that preserved individual identity across multiple physical substrates. They had solved energy production through direct quantum manipulation of space-time itself. They had created transportation networks that operated outside conventional understanding of physics. More significantly, they had constructed a civilization based on organizational principles that allowed coordination across temporal and spatial scales that other species literally could not imagine. Every human who had participated in the defense of Earth had done so with complete understanding of their role in strategic plans that spanned not just centuries or millennia, but geological timescales that encompassed the long-term development of galactic civilization itself. Your offer of strategic partnership, Vector said, as the communication entered its final phase. What specific requirements would such an arrangement entail for Dominion civilization? Complete transparency in your strategic planning processes, unrestricted access to your technological databases and research archives, formal agreement to operate within parameters designed to ensure galactic stability and optimal developmental outcomes for all participating civilizations, Navarre replied, with the precision of someone reciting established policy that had been refined through centuries of application. In exchange, humanity would provide technological advancement guidance that would accelerate Dominion civilization development by several centuries, while ensuring compatibility with broader galactic coordination frameworks. And if our leadership structures refuse such partnership arrangements? Admiral Dravel asked, though her tone suggested she already understood the implications of such a decision. Then your civilization continues operating as an independent power within the broader galactic community, subject to the same developmental pressures and strategic limitations that have characterized your expansion to this point, Navarre said, with simple directness that was somehow more intimidating than any explicit threat could have been. Humanity does not engage in conquest, forced conversion, or punitive measures against civilizations that choose to maintain independence. We merely adjust our strategic planning calculations to account for powers that prefer to remain outside our coordination frameworks. The casual dismissal carried implications that transcended military threat and approached existential irrelevance. If the Dominion refused partnership with humanity, they would not be destroyed or conquered. They would simply become strategically insignificant in a galaxy where human intelligence guided developmental patterns on scales they could not perceive or influence. How much time do we have to reach a decision regarding partnership? Science Coordinator Morvain asked. Take whatever duration your decision-making processes require, Navarre replied, with the patience of someone for whom temporal considerations operated on entirely different scales. From humanity's strategic perspective, whether your civilization decides in days, years, or decades is functionally identical. We conduct our planning operations on timescales that accommodate the long-term developmental requirements of galactic civilization as a whole. When the communication finally terminated, the surviving Dominion commanders remained in stunned silence, contemplating what was arguably the most momentous decision in the history of their species. Partnership would mean acknowledging subordinate status to a civilization they had intended to conquer and accepting guidance from intelligences that operated on strategic scales beyond their comprehension. Refusal would mean continuing as an isolated power in a galaxy where humanity manipulated events through mechanisms they could neither detect nor influence. What do you believe they truly represent? Science Coordinator Morvain asked, her voice barely above a whisper in the vast war chamber. I believe, Vector replied slowly, his voice carrying the weight of revelations that challenged every fundamental assumption about consciousness, civilization, and the nature of intelligence itself. That they represent what any sufficiently advanced organic civilization becomes when it learns to transcend the limitations of individual mortality, resource scarcity, and competitive territorial expansion. And if we accept their partnership terms, Intelligence Director Corvin wondered aloud, then we become part of whatever transformation humanity is orchestrating throughout the galaxy. Vekatar answered, after long consideration. We survive as a civilization. We advance beyond our current limitations, and we participate in something larger than anything we could achieve independently. As their command vessel began its lengthy journey back to Dominion space, carrying intelligence that would fundamentally reshape Kethran understanding of their place in the galactic order, Vector found himself reflecting on the profound implications of Operation Final Harvest. They had spent centuries preparing to conquer a species that had evolved beyond the conceptual frameworks that made conquest strategically relevant. Humanity hadn't merely defeated the Dominion invasion through superior technology or tactical excellence. They had demonstrated that the entire paradigm of forced expansion, territorial acquisition, and resource competition represented primitive thinking patterns, suitable only for civilizations that had not yet learned to achieve their objectives through strategic patience, comprehensive planning, and coordination mechanisms that transcended individual limitations. The galaxy operated according to physical laws and strategic principles. But humanity had discovered methodologies that allowed them to work within those constraints while achieving outcomes that appeared to violate fundamental limitations of space, time, energy, and information. 6 centuries of human preparation had neutralized 4 centuries of Dominion planning in a single night, revealing that while the Dominion had been playing conquest, humanity had been orchestrating evolution.